Good evening. It's been a day of protest in Dunedin. The biggest came from students who took to the streets to show the government what they think of the increase in fees proposed for next year. The good-natured crowd of several thousand students marched the length of Dunedin's main shopping area to the Exchange, where they gathered to cheer on the speakers who voiced their concerns. Kathy Graham was there.
1, 2, 3, 4! 1, 2, 3, 4! We won't pay fees anymore! We won't pay fees anymore!
The marchers kept up a succession of chants.
Stop these now, it's not too late! 1, 2, 3, 4!
The demonstration's part of a nationwide campaign to persuade the government to dump the student fee increases it's proposing next year. University students were joined by students from Teachers College and the Botanic who are faced with similar increases. They're concerned students from low-income families, already hard pushed to make ends meet, will be forced to drop out. Minister of Education Phil Goff was a special target. Student leaders urged the crowd to use the ballot box to express their disapproval.
Keep up that pressure. Let's hit the government where it hurts most, in the ballot box.
User pay has put barriers in the past on the roads to education, tertiary education. Make people pay and a lot of people can't afford it and they don't go. That's not free education, that's not open education.
I'm from an average income family and I think it's unfair to expect parents to support their children, once they've gone to university, and then they should be able to stand on their own feet.
A lot of friends who have very large overdrafts and I just don't suppose they won't be able to come back, especially if you're undergraduate.
I couldn't afford to stay on at university if I was made to pay those fees next year, probably.
Well, as it is at the moment, I'm going to have to move out of my house because I can't afford to pay rent, so things are just going to get worse. I won't be able to go back, I'll just have to go and be unemployed.
The students say they'll keep up the pressure. Teaching staff are sympathetic, and even some school pupils turned up to support the students' cause.
We're just not going to have the money to come to the university next year because of the $1,500 will have to be waived over Christmas, and the lack of holiday jobs just means that half the students who would intend coming next year won't be able to come.
A breakdown in redundancy talks at Greggs in Dunedin has led to staff going on strike until Monday. More than 100 workers from 9 unions will picket the factory right through until 9 o'clock on Monday morning. They've rejected an offer from the company and describe it as unworthy of a multinational company. This afternoon, a trailer load of Greggs products ready for dispatch was unloaded again before the picketers allowed the empty trailer out of the yard. 77 union staff and 13 salary earners are to be made redundant, and feelings are running high. The company declined to comment. And in another protest at Queen Mary today, 150 people turned up to show their opposition to the decision to close the maternity hospital. Carolyn Harper reports.
Feelings about the closure of Queen Mary have been running high ever since the board decided the maternity hospital would be a casualty of its budget cuts.
Come on, everybody!
But although there was plenty of emotion among the protesters, the numbers didn't reflect the sentiment. Most of the 20,000 men and women who signed the petition against closing Queen Mary didn't turn up for today's protest.
We would have liked more if it had been possible, but you've got to remember that these people have supported us for 3 or 4 weeks now, and people are starting to get just a bit worn out, the whole process. The board is wearing us down.
The idea of the protest was to form a human chain around the hospital, but the protesters couldn't stretch far enough. While some managed to maintain a sense of humour on the issue, others were beyond consoling.
But Dunedin mothers and babies scored a victory on another front today. The city's Plunket family units, which have been under threat of closure, are both to remain open. The decision was made at a meeting of the National Executive of Plunket in Wellington. The fully utilised Dunedin North and South units have been caring for parents and babies for 10 years. A recent national report recommended the city lose one of the 2 units. However, Otago Plunket put forward submissions opposing the closure. Local Plunket says it had an excellent case for keeping both units, which it believes swayed the National Executive. It says it's a tremendous victory for Dunedin mothers, especially in the light of the decision to close Queen Mary. A young West German conscientious objector is seeking refuge on an island in Otago Harbour as an alternative to spending 2 years in the military. Most West Germans have to do compulsory military training unless they've good reason not to. But as Mark Price reports, this young man expects to be allowed to serve out his time on St Martin's Island instead.
St Martin's Island is about as remote as you can get from the threat of nuclear warfare. And for a young apprentice cabinet maker like Jan Besch with a strong commitment to peace, it's an ideal alternative to life in the West German military. The stand taken by conscientious objectors is accepted by the military, which usually offers as an alternative some form of community service. A few manage to get right away from it all, with help, in this case, from the Methodist Church in West Germany and the St Martin's Island religious community here.
The community is very much involved in peace work, and it's an incredibly creative thing to bring someone committed to peace like Jan Besch, a conscientious objector, out to New Zealand.
100 years ago, St Martin's Island was a quarantine station for immigrants. Some of the buildings remain, as do 78 immigrants who never set foot on the mainland. Today, the island has just 2 residents who look after the island and greet Christians on retreat from the mainland. By October, it's hoped they'll be joined by a young West German with an equally strong commitment to peace.
There's a little bit of the tropics in Dunedin, even at this time of the year. Kim Haring found it in the glass houses at the Botanic Gardens, which are getting a long overdue restoration. The $500,000 project's been given the go-ahead, and it's not just a window wash.
It's Dunedin's oasis in winter. In here on a cold winter morning, it feels more like a balmy Tahitian evening. It's a jewel for the Parks Department, but it's now 10 years since it was due for renovation. Parks staff have made such a good job of tending the plants that the mouldy windows and rotting wood are hidden in lushness.
The Winter Gardens itself is a fantastic asset for a city like Dunedin. It presents, as you can see, an experience, an educational and scientific value of putting people in front of plants and allowing them to appreciate and understand about plants. And at the same time, there's the design. The original Winter Gardens was a bequest, and its Victorian style really suits the cultural heritage of Dunedin.
The restoration will be faithful to the original design. The fish and water plants will get a new pond, and the central house will be made taller to accommodate the large trees. Park staff are hoping to start moving the plants by the end of the year.
Finally tonight, there were 3 good wins today for the region's sports teams. At Pairoa, the Southland rugby team beat Thames Valley by 17 points to 6. The Otago netball and men's hockey teams also had convincing wins. And that's the programme for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. Good night.